Dmitry from Ukraine is saying that you guys on the panel are all Ruby and Merb hackers, but you got to help us get to that level. Can you advise us on a few most effective steps that we can start doing right now to get there?
Why don't we start with Ezra and work our way across?
Read code, right? There's nothing you can do better than reading code. It's probably not the exact answer you want to hear, but that's how I got where I am, is by reading interesting code and trying to grok it and going and looking stuff up when I didn't understand something and playing with it in the terminal and this and that and the other thing. And that's probably the best advice I could give you, is go read code. This is mostly applying to just becoming a Ruby expert in general. Just go read all the code you can find and try to make sure you understand it.
And then hack. You actually got to do it. There's no way to get around it. Really trying to go through all these frameworks and, I don't know, trying to fix bugs or figuring out what's going on is the only way to do it. There's no way around it. So just do it over and over again. You'll just grow, improve doing it, and you'll learn a lot by reading it and then trying to hack it and then redoing it in your own apps or that kind of, just got to code.
You have a bunch of good books out there that will get you started with basic Ruby stuff. I think if you have a background in programming, you should be able to get up and running pretty quickly. I would say read books, read all the blogs, see what's going on there. GitHub is a great place to actually read code, as Ezra was saying, because you can just browse all the code you want. The other thing is probably local groups. I know here in San Diego we have the SD Ruby group, and it's something that's very helpful for people that don't really know. They can come and ask questions, get together, come on IRC if you have questions. Try to find people who can actually help you. That's the way it works, and then spend hours on it. That's, write small apps, get started, usual stuff.
One of the things that I've tried to do is, if I don't understand something, I just try to break it down into its simplest case and then run a few test cases on it. Having said that, one of the main things that I've done coming from a mechanical engineering background, so I never really did much programming until fairly recently, was I made sure that everything I did was fun, and if I wanted to do something, it was cool, because that really kept my motivation high to keep going and keep learning new things. And I think it's important that we never just sort of get into a daily grind with it, that we do make sure we keep doing things that we enjoy.
I would say ever since I started programming, really, there's always been a point. I've always been doing something, and there's something right above me that seems impossible. Like, I don't even know how I'd begin doing that. That's crazy. And I always do that. And if you always do that, if you keep doing that, eventually you'll be doing things that you didn't even know existed. Like, I don't know, I just rewrote the Merb server, and I didn't even have a conception of what Unix sockets were, or, I don't know, like a year ago. So basically just always figure out what it, never say, oh, that seems too hard, I'll leave that for smarter people. Right? Always do that thing.
I would say just write code, and specifically write code you care about. Scratch your own itch. If you're going to write code just for the purpose of learning how to write code, you're going to get bored and stop really fast. So find something you're interested in learning how to program. Find something you're interested in, you want to program for, and write that program. And just do it. I mean, try it. Try and make it work. Release it as open source. Let people tear it to shreds, and learn.
There's definitely nothing like open source. Like releasing your own code as open source, right. Vulnerable, out there in the world.
I think we also have 2 books coming up. There's the Merb Way and Merb in Action. I think, from what I read from what you guys started, Yehuda and Ezra and Michael, I think, it goes through the steps and the main concepts behind Merb. So if you want to get started, it's a great way of understanding what's going on behind the scene. Like, why do we do things this way? And then, honestly, come and ask us, like, why did you do that in the bootloader? I know that we spent some time. Michael Clishin is actually writing some sort of handbook on GitHub where he talks about the internals of Merb and how everything's work. It might be a bit too advanced if you just come to Ruby, but it's a great way of trying to understand what's going on and understand why we don't like, Elias method chain. If you don't know it, why is it bad? Come and ask us. We'll try to explain that to you. That's something I really appreciate with Yehuda is when we have questions, you can, most of the time, if he's available, you can ask him, and he will actually explain it to you. He won't tell you, oh, you're too stupid, you don't understand that. And I know I grew as a developer because I would be able to go to different people and say, dude, I really have no idea what's going on here. Do you mind spending 10 minutes just explain to me what's going on so I'll be able to do it better, and next time I can teach somebody else.
Also, I would say the book that came out recently called The Ruby Programming Language by Mats and Joe Flanagan is, you have to actually read it, but it really goes through, this is not about programming, but it's more about like understanding quirks of Ruby. It really goes through a lot of little quirks of Ruby, like what's the difference between a lambda, a proc, and a block? A lot of people don't know the answer to that question. But it goes through it in meticulous detail. How does multiple assignment work in Ruby? So that's if you're looking for like understanding quirks that maybe elude you at the moment, that book, if you read it cover to cover, is fantastic. The Ruby Programming Language. It's by Mats and Joe Flanagan.
I also recommend keeping like a little Ruby sketchbook. Make yourself like a little scratch directory. Every time you come across some new idiom you think is cool or you don't understand, make a little snippet out of it and try to understand it, write a little test for it, and keep that around. Yeah. And also make little benchmark files for different techniques and keep that around. And that will really help you pick up on all the quirks and edge cases in the language and give you... It takes a while because there's a lot of edge cases, but once you get a feel for what constructs are expensive and what are not in Ruby, you will be thinking in Ruby, and keeping a sketchbook like that really helps.
Yeah, definitely benchmark mercilessly. The Ruby, if you go to download like Merbcore, there's a directory called experimentation in there, I think, and in there there's a benchmarks directory which has like benchmarks for millions of things. Basically all the time we're like, oh, I wonder if that's slow, and you just check, and it actually really changes your... Knowing what sorts of things in Ruby are slow and what sorts of things are fast doesn't always enter into when you're writing code. If you're writing a script that like does something, who cares? But actually knowing the answer to the question, just every time you're like, I wonder if that's slow, just check.